Hello everyone, welcome to this edition of MeteoMark's Weather. It's great to have you on the channel today. We're going to be starting off here with the tropics. We unfortunately have something that is being picked up by models, if you can believe it, here into the Caribbean as we head on into the mid part of November. So we're going to take a look at a few tropical waves here, something maybe trying to spin up around the 12th or 13th here into the Western Caribbean and propagating towards the Gulf. We'll also be looking at our snowfall outlook. Yeah, snow is going to become a thing here across the east. We have several chances of the white stuff, heavy wet snow in some of these areas, especially around the Great Lakes, and even some of these coastal lows trying to spin up along the coast. Alberta Clippers, here they come. Let's get into it. And we'll start off here with the GFS, and then we'll propagate over towards the Euro. So here we are. We're starting off with a little bit of rain here with this tropical wave just northeast of the Yucatan near Cancun. That's going to kind of fizzle out here into the Gulf. Trying to hold on here. You see it's at the base tail end of this stalled frontal boundary, as has been the case much of this hurricane season. Now, we got a few other areas we're watching out here. Of course, the Cape Verde area is pretty much shut down for the most part, as it should be. We have a couple tropical waves here we're watching. This one pretty much moves to the northeast and gets sheared apart, heading off towards Bermuda there. Now, this one towards the 8th, as we get on into Barbados, St. Lucia, Grenada here, St. Vincent, all the way down to Trinidad, Tobago. This is going to bring some gusty showers and thunderstorms. Now, what I want to turn your attention to is right around the 10th. I'm going to give you a hint. The Euro is also picking up on this to a little bit of a different extent. We also have the tail end of a front over here causing a lot of moisture. Now, watch these two areas on the GFS. They're going to come together kind of like the Euro hints here, but we have area of low pressure trying to form due south of Jamaica here on the 11th. Let's hope this stays away from Jamaica, although it's looking like you're going to be on the north side of it here. I'm hoping that this stays well to the south of Jamaica, because you do not need any more of this problems, and you need to clean up and whatnot, the recovery effort. Our thoughts and prayers are with you here in Jamaica. I hope the recovery effort is going well. But here we go. There's a lot of rain that could occur with this storm on the northern edge of this. We're going to zoom in here. You see area of low pressure. Now, it looks like it's not going to intensify very rapidly. So whatever this does become, it's a very broad area of low pressure. And these broader circulations, they have a tendency not to intensify as rapidly as smaller circulations. So that is the good news. The bad news is it's going to be a tremendous rainmaker. And areas eastern Nicaragua up to northern Honduras need to watch out for the possibility that this could cause life-threatening mudslides. Now, look what's going to start to happen right around November 14th. Let me just pan out here. This becomes a very large circulation. You continue to see heavy rains here, Jamaica, stretching up through the Cayman Islands, just west of Haiti here. Watch out, Haiti. You could still get clipped with some of these outer bands, even in the southern Bahamas here. But look where it's focusing a lot of the heaviest rain. We're going down into Nicaragua and Honduras here, in these mountainous areas. And this is going to be a very slow-moving system. It does start to get wrapped up in the tail end of this frontal boundary you see through the 16th and the 17th. The rain does start to lift off towards Belize and the Yucatan Peninsula towards Cancun as we head on to the 16th. Now, you see Jamaica, it finally shuts down, but you're talking about 4 to 5 days of heavy rain. That's not good. And then we're left over with some showers and thunder showers over towards Haiti, Dominican Republic. Thankfully, nothing else out here towards the Lesser Antilles. This crosses Cancun area. Now, I'm a little skeptical of this. The GFS wants to take this up towards the Gulf. Now, it is quite entirely possible that this does happen, but, you know, we have seen this time and time again on the models, bringing a tropical storm or hurricane into the Gulf, and then nothing happens. It either veers west or it completely fizzles out once it hits the Gulf due to dry air and wind shear. So I'm a little skeptical of this. We'll keep an eye on this regardless, because this would be the November 17th, 18th, 19th timeframe, showing a landfalling system along the panhandle of Florida with tremendous rain here. So we'll keep an eye on it. Anything else? Well, not really. Look at behind that. It looks like the tropics are going to try to shut down. Let's take a look at the Euro. And thanks to Tropical Tidbits for our European model analysis. Now let's get into our issue here with what's going to be potentially developing here in the South Central Caribbean. So first off, they're both initializing really well. Just like the GFS, we have this tropical wave up here across Cancun, kind of mixing with this boundary, the stalled boundary across the Yucatan all the way up to the southeastern Bahamas. Now, look what starts to happen here. Let's get that out of the way. So as we go through time, yeah, that kind of fizzles out here into the southern Gulf. There is our next tropical wave and another one trying to form here off the Colombian coast of South America here. That has little fanfare. You know, it's kind of spinning up from day to day here, and at night it tends to spin down a bit. But here we go. Look at this. Two major tropical waves that we're going to be watching through Saturday, November 8th here. They kind of flare up from time to time here, and then through the 9th into the 10th. What we're looking for is a pattern here. And look what starts to happen right around Jamaica, Honduras, Belize, these areas, back even through southwestern Haiti here. These are all areas that don't need that heavy rain. Look what starts to conglomerate. You have this stalled frontal boundary that's associated with this east coast low, this coastal low, blasting up here on November 11th. Look at the western and central Caribbean here. Jamaica, November 11th. This is about the time frame the GFS was indicating trouble here, southwest of Jamaica. Look at northern coast of Honduras here on the Euro. This is going to output some tremendous rainfall totals. We're greatly worried about this. We know you just went through this sort of thing in Jamaica, only with Category 5 winds. Honduras, it looks like this, according to the Euro, is going to be more tropical storm, tropical depression, disturbance type entity with tremendously large circulation and tremendously heavy rain. This is November 12th into the 13th. You see it hugging the northern coastline of Honduras here, and then eventually Belize. And the Euro does want to, I'm pretty much more in the Euro camp and wanting to take it up across the Yucatan, and then eventually wind shear. We'll get to it here, as I'll show you on the wind shear and the dry air maps. Behind it, just like on the GFS, things become a lot quieter through November 19th and 20th. Sea surface temperature analysis, I want to make note, yeah, we got some cold upwelling here on Jamaica, parts of the southeastern Bahamas, Haiti, eastern Cuba. That's expected with what happened with Melissa. But look at, the Gulf up here has been on fire. But the western parts of the Caribbean, where I'm concerned about with that strong tropical wave, that's where we're still running a good 2-3 degrees above average. All right, so for the GFS rainfall amounts here, yeah, look at this. Watch this crank out here. So as we go all the way through the 20th, ultimately you're going to be looking at this big old ball of moisture, so to speak. And look at the north coast of Honduras. I'm even concerned, look at southeastern parts of Jamaica, close to 400 millimeters, 200 millimeters. This is concerning. Southwestern Haiti up towards 200. Cayman Islands, about 100, 150. Look at the north coast of Honduras, though, over to parts of Nicaragua. Some of these areas could get 700 to 800 millimeters. Belize, right around 200 to 300 millimeters, all the way up to Cancun, about 100, 150. Very, very concerning. Dominican Republic, through the rest of eastern Haiti here, you're more in the 60, 80, maybe 100 millimeters. And here we are for the tropics. Rainfall on the European model. Look at this. As we go through time, you can ultimately see we're going to be eking out quite a bit. It's not going to be as much as on the GFS model here. Europeans going a little bit weaker and further to the south and west. A little bit better news for Jamaica here with 40, 60, maybe 100 millimeters, 120 eastern tip of Jamaica. This would be a better scenario for Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, Haiti. Look at parts of Honduras, upwards of 400, 500, 600 millimeters. So you're still looking at life-threatening rains and mudslides here along the north coast of Honduras. Eastern Belize as well, 200, 300 millimeters. And looking at the GFS here into the eastern Caribbean, as we go through time here, look what's happening. So ultimately, it's the central and western parts of the Caribbean. That's where the big story is going to be. Parts of eastern Puerto Rico and St. Croix, maybe upwards of maybe 2.5 to 4 inches. We'll have to keep an eye on this. And then the islands here, especially south of the Virgin Islands, some of these areas could be racking up 100 to 150 millimeters all the way down to Trinidad and Tobago here. And here we are looking to the Eastern Caribbean as we go through time. Those tropical waves are going to continue to eke through the Lesser Antilles here, especially the central and southern Lesser Antilles. A little bit less than on the GFS, but you get the idea. 60, 70, 80 millimeters. Some areas closer, over 100 millimeters here, depending on where you are, from Trinidad, Tobago, northward to St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and just south of the Virgin Islands. Looks like Puerto Rico and St. Croix not eking out more than, say, a half to 3/4 of an inch, locally higher. All right, so I wanted to show you the dry air analysis with respect to this potential system. You see across the Caribbean, we're kind of battling that dry air through the 11th into the 12th. Now, look what starts to happen here. It's this tropical moisture connection. You see it from the Eastern Pacific here. This is what crosses over into parts of Central America to help energize this tropical wave coming in from the east. And you see that surge of moisture. That's what's going to get us cranking here for a potential heavy rain event. Now, do I think this could become a hurricane? It's not likely on the European model, especially. The GFS is showing a hurricane. I think with a large system like this, the main threat would be some tremendously heavy rain, maybe a tropical storm that we may be having to look at here. But this positive signal is definitely there. But look at this. By the 19th and 20th, look at the dry air encompasses all of the Caribbean. Great news. All right, look at the wind shear analysis here. Yeah, as we go through time, we're going to go right to about the 8th, the 9th, and then look what starts to happen here. Right where our potential system tries to develop, the wind shear is next to nothing down here. You just have a little bit on the northern edge that's like 25, 30, 35 knots up here by Jamaica, but the center pretty much stays south of Jamaica. That keeps us more into the 15 to 20 knots of wind shear, and then it lightens up even more through the 16th and 17th here towards 10 and 15 knots. So yeah, I think that will keep it in check from becoming any sort of extreme hurricane or anything like that, but we're still going to have to watch here because wind shear does continue to slacken here through the 17th and 18th, but as the tropics wind down here, look at this, wind shear really starting to take over here into the Eastern Caribbean. All right, so here we are with the HRRR future radar. Let's take it through the rest of the overnight into your Wednesday. So we have this Alberta Clipper style system. There's not a whole lot of snow with it, just on the northern edge here in Canada and then eventually into the northern parts of New England. But I want to make note of something here. This is 4 p.m. on Wednesday the 5th. We got some showers and some gusty showers moving through Cleveland just in time for the evening rush here for your Wednesday. And this pushes across parts of upstate New York, Pennsylvania, north central Pennsylvania, I-81 corridor, Binghamton, Scranton area, pushes through Utica, and eventually the eastern Catskills, Hudson Valley through New Jersey here. It's going to be very gusty. There's some high wind watches and warnings and advisories in effect, so please heed those. And look at that. On the back side of this, the higher elevations of the Adirondacks, northern Catskills, Vermont area, New Hampshire, Maine, this is going to pull into a potential snowstorm for you. And then on the back side of this, you start to see the lake effect streamers set up. Switch it back to the composite mode because there is a few things I wanted to show you with the future radar as we push through this vigorous system. Here's 5 p.m. on Wednesday. Some of these storms that move through northeast Ohio, northwestern Pennsylvania, starting in Cleveland, Erie, Buffalo, could be severe, damaging winds in excess of 60 miles an hour. Even outside of the thunderstorms, the winds will be raging and howling. But look at this. 7 p.m. Some of these storms along this line could contain extremely damaging wind gusts. This moves through Binghamton and Scranton right around 7 to 8 p.m. towards the eastern Catskills, 9 p.m. Poughkeepsie, and then off towards New England. Look how fast it's moving. Watch out. And then even some strong cells trying to develop overnight behind at 1 a.m. on Thursday morning. So please, please be careful. Look at that. Look at that comma shape as this low tries to bomb off the coast. I wanted to go over these hazards here. Yeah, this up here into the northeast, this is a high wind watch with some wind advisories around it. Watch out. The winds could be getting really strong here. Now look at this. We actually have the chance of some strong to severe thunderstorms into northeast Ohio, northern Pennsylvania, into upstate New York for your Wednesday. Watch out. Damaging wind would be the main threat in excess of 60 miles per hour. As we stretch on into Thursday, generalized thunderstorms across parts of Illinois, northern Missouri, southeastern Iowa, and into parts of the Rockies out here. All right, so we're going to pick up where our feature radar left off here. You can see the low pressure moving through the Great Lakes in the northeast as we stretch on. There's going to be a lot of wind with this. Look at these isobars, really close together. So there it is, low pressure crossing. And wind, yeah, it's going to play havoc on the joints, aches and pains as well, as we have these tight pressure gradients. Now behind it, look at this. On the 6, we get the high pressure. This is a very fast-moving flow pattern here. You see some showers around Florida here as well. Snow's up here into parts of Ontario and Quebec. But look at November 7th. Look at this storm that was all the way over in Minneapolis, Minnesota, just a day ago. Look at it moving through Cleveland, Cincinnati, Buffalo, Syracuse area, northern New England. This one looks like it's going to be all rain. And that's mainly for the beginning of the weekend, like Friday night into early Saturday morning. That pushes off the coast. Now watch this next Alberta-style clipper here. Yeah, it could bring some heavy wet snow from South Bend, Indiana, maybe ending as heavy wet snow around Chicago. This is the 9th at 1 a.m. Detroit area. Look at this burst of heavier snow. There could be some thunder snow with this as well. But look at this, low pressure. It is bringing up some warmer air on the eastern side, so this will be mostly rain showers. But look at changing to snow here. Look at Cleveland. You could see a burst of heavy snow around November 9th at 4 p.m. up to Buffalo. Erie, you're kind of mixing here initially, and then a burst of heavy snow. But look what kicks in just behind it here. You see these isobars coming really close together. That's going to be those northwest winds howling off Lake Erie and Lake Ontario here. Cleveland, this could be your first big lake effect event of the season. We'll have to keep an eye on this up to Syracuse as well through the Finger Lakes. We'll be watching this because this is some unseasonably cold air for the season crossing these Great Lakes into the 10th. You see northeast Ohio here, Cleveland, especially northeastern Cleveland, all the way up to Erie, south of Buffalo. And then the flow pattern towards the 11th becomes more westerly here. So you see it off Lake Erie, Lake Ontario, pulling north of Cleveland by this time. Most of the rest of the east is dealing with nothing except for this warm front moving through Michigan during this time. Might bring some spritzles of rain and some wet snowflakes through the 12th here into the I-81 corridor. But look at that. Yeah, it kind of bombs out into some kind of Alberta Clipper type system and then up into the Canadian Maritimes here. But lake effect response behind that as well. We have another Clipper moving through. This one looks mostly rain through the 16th. This one pushing up from the southwest, but on the northern fringe here, you might want to watch out. Some of this could be some heavy wet snow. 1 p.m. It all depends on what time of day. If it's overnight into early morning, you might get higher snow accumulations. But this one looks in the evening. Look at this. Some heavy wet snow around southern New England here, northern New Jersey. That moves off the coast. So all in all, until we get to about the 19th, this kind of breaks the pattern here for snow lovers in the east. You have this, the classic Colorado low that pulls all this warm air up into the east. And then you have the secondary low develop with some tremendous rain here on the east end. And here we are with the European model, starting off with our future radar left off. You can see that storm moving across the northeast here. Look at that, some wind. The isobars are just so close together. That wind's going to be howling 988 millibar here Thursday morning up here in the Gulf of Maine. So you know on the backside, the mountains, you're going to be getting some wet snow. High pressure building in for Friday, but it's very short-lived with that next system moving through as I showed you on the GFS. Now the Euro showing it pretty well here as well. Some heavier rain showers and some gusty winds moving through. Not as much wind with that system, though. Here's our next Alberta Clipper for Sunday. This one starts as rain in many areas, but look at that, ending as snow. And then lake effect really gets cranking. Look at this massive trough carving out across eastern United States. Even parts of the Appalachians here getting some wet snowflakes. Even some here in southeastern Virginia mix as a low tries to really spin up here off the east coast. Winds will be howling. Look at this. Into Wednesday of next week, these isobars signify there is some tremendous wind here, and it's just going to continue until about Saturday, November 15th. You see it gets quieter with this high pressure building in. Next system looks to shoot up right through like Colorado low with the next system as well. So we're going to start to get into a more warmer pattern as we head towards the third week of November with heavier rains here in the east. All right, so let's take a look. Yeah, this is going to be really, really interesting concerning wind speed here. Watch what starts to happen here Wednesday. This is around midday, right around noon, 1 p.m. Look at these wind gusts. Look at this. This is some crazy wind gusts here on the European model, even off the coastline. But look at this. As we stretch on into Wednesday evening and Wednesday night, some of these wind gusts upwards of 50, 60 miles an hour in the Catskills, Poconos area. Widespread mid to high 40 gusts here in New York and Pennsylvania, those ridge tops. And that pulls towards New England. Look at this, Nantucket, 73 mile an hour wind gusts. Boston right around 58 miles an hour. New York City, 40. If I just back that up, yeah, you can see eastern tip of Long Island right around 55 miles an hour. So you get the idea. These are going to be some tremendously strong winds. Then the system behind it brings 20 to 35 mile per hour gusts as well. These systems this time of year are really going to bring some extremely gusty winds. And here we are with a national rainfall amounts here. On the GFS model, you can see as we go through the weekend into next week, the Great Lakes, Eastern Great Lakes, all those Alberta Clipper style systems. And then we start to try to get these coastals taken back over later in the month towards the 20th. But look at this. Yeah, this would be a potential landfalling tropical system here with the GFS. But up towards the Ohio Valley in the northeast, this would be some beneficial rains, and some of it on the northern fringe could fall as snow, especially these lake effect areas. We'll have to watch out. Widespread, 1.5 inches, close to 3 inches. And liquid equivalent amounts here onto the European model. Let's take that total amounts. And look at this. We spread this to the east. This looks a little more realistic than the GFS did. But watch this as we go all the way through the end. Yeah, this takes us all the way through that third week of November. Yeah, we start to see a surge in moisture with these low pressure systems, widespread 1.5 inches to 3 inches in many areas. All right, so let's take a look at our GFS snowfall amounts there into northern New England with that first system here this week. And then look what starts to happen, these Alberta Clippers, and then you get the lake effect forming behind it. Look at this. We're just going to crank these totals up. Look at, there's a synoptic system through upstate New York that moves through right around Monday into Tuesday, the 17th and 18th of November. Yeah, look at this. Some areas widespread 7, 8, 9 inch amounts. Look at these lake effect snow belts. Southeast of Erie and Buffalo, upwards of 15 to 20 inches. Look at east of Cleveland here, 12 inches, a foot. Adirondacks piling up the snow, 12 to 18 inches in the northern white and green mountains. Even the upper Midwest here, widespread 2 to 6 inch amounts. So looking at the snowfall here on our European run, look at this. So as we go through time, ultimately you can see we get towards next week, Monday, Tuesday. Yeah, parts of the Ohio Valley and the Appalachians here on the Euro picking up some snowfall here. Look at much of Ohio picking up a couple inches. So this more widespread on the Euro. As we go through time, this takes us all the way through the 19th. Doesn't look like there's much additional, but you get the idea here. There's some snowfall falling. And before we continue with more weather coverage, don't forget, if you made it this far in the video and you like it, please, everyone, smash that like button. It really does help. Question or comment down below. I love to read your questions and comments and respond to them. And don't forget, subscribe, bell notification button. I am so close to getting my winter 2025-26 outlook, so be sure to check out for that. And let's continue with more weather coverage. Looking at our NAO index here, we are starting out neutral and we're heading towards negative to slightly neutral once again as we head later on into November. And looking at our MJO index here, we're right around, you can see we're right around here in 5. So models have been wanting to take us towards 6 and 7 and potentially 8 as we head towards Thanksgiving and into early December. That would signify stormier conditions could be really ahead. So our upper air map here on the European run, you can see troughiness is going to reign supreme here into the northeast, mid-Atlantic, southeast Canada. We're just going to continue one right after another. Look at this, the 9th, 10th. Look at this one on the 10th. This is kind of crazy. And we can go further out. If we go back to our 12Z run here on the Euro. Watch this on the 11th. Yeah. We're going to have to watch some of these because we could have some snow in the interior sections and on the back side of this as it pulls enough cold air down. We get ridging right around the 15th and 16th along the East Coast, but watch what's really starting to form out here in the central states. That's a big trough. Oh, Western Pacific is on fire here. We have Typhoon Kalmagi here And then we have Tropical Depression 32. Yeah, so watch this. We have dual storms out here. This one continuing to move away from the central Philippines. Let's take them one by one here. This one's going to strengthen to a Category 2, maybe a Category 3 before reaching Vietnam here. This is the 6, so look how fast it's moving. It's going to be a very fast mover. That means the rain threat's going to be less, but the wind threat and surge threat's going to be higher. Now, here is our next system. This thing's really going to start blasting up. This is probably going to become a super typhoon at some point here. Look at through the 9th into the 10th. Where is this going to go? Well, here's the thing. This is storm system moving away from Japan, South Korea. Look how clear things are getting up here by the 10th. So let's see where this tries to go. Usually this time of year, they either try to bend westward or they try to come north with very little success. This does start to round the bend towards Taiwan, and look at the tropical moisture streaming up along the southern Japanese islands here. It looks like this thing wants to make landfall in Taiwan and then try to head back out over the open waters. But look at this. See how it's kind of fizzling out and it becomes something extra tropical? That's because it's so cold up here. It's pretty much the cold season up here. So it pretty much gets sheared out and into an extra tropical system. Japan is mostly saved once again here. But there you can see another typhoon trying to crop up here, following right in the footsteps of our first typhoon. So yeah, there's a few entities here we're going to have to watch. And looking at the Western Pacific rainfall amounts here with our potential 2 typhoons. Yeah, the first one in Vietnam, second one moving through the northern Philippines. Yeah, that's not good towards Taiwan landfall, it looks like. And then some tropical moisture tries to hit parts of the southern Japanese islands here. But look at this. Parts of eastern Taiwan, upwards of 500, 600 millimeters. Northern parts of Philippines here, 600, 700 millimeters. And the eastern, wow, close to 1,000 millimeters here in the eastern central parts of Vietnam. All right, so for our Canadian weather outlook here, yes, southern Ontario and Quebec as we stretch through Wednesday here into Thursday. You could have some bursts of heavy wet snow through New Brunswick and maybe ending here as Nova Scotia on the 6th. So look at this next clipper moving through southern Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Ontario through the 7th into the 8th. Look how fast these are moving. And then we get another Alberta clipper just moving here out of Alberta. That's pretty much where they come from. This one diving further south out of Canada. But look at this. Another Pacific system moving in right around the 9th into the 10th. This system from the United States moving through southern Ontario and Quebec. That's going to bring a burst of heavy wet snow through much of Quebec here, central, southern, and eastern Quebec, through the Canadian Maritimes. This next Alberta clipper gets moving through Manitoba, the 11th, diving southward. It kind of weakens and then picks up steam here off the U.S. East Coast. So there you have it. We're looking at a very fast-moving flow pattern here. There's that next Alberta clipper moving through Manitoba, Ontario. By the 16th, you see this burst of heavier snow across southern Ontario and Quebec, and eventually New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and look at that. That bombs off Newfoundland there. Yeah, and then it becomes much colder and quieter here. With the exception for the West Coast, we still have some of these systems. And then we get this system from the United States that attempts to push some warm air up here through November 20th. And here we are for Canadian liquid equivalent precipitation here. As we go through time, ultimately you can see it's both coasts that are really getting inundated here. West Coast, British Columbia, upwards towards 200 to 300 millimeters plus. And then look at southeastern Canada here, 60 to 90 millimeters. Some of these yellow areas closer to 100 to 120 millimeters. And here we are for Canadian snowfall here in centimeters. Yeah, the West Coast, that's where you're getting up to 70 to 90 centimeter plus in those mountains. But look at this. As we stretch through that second, third week of November, look at parts of Ontario and Quebec, Canadian Maritimes. There's some areas in here. If we go down to the legend here, look at 25, 30, 40 centimeters with locally higher to 50 centimeters in some of these areas. Now, granted, this isn't near the large population centers, but look at even down towards Toronto, in Montreal, these areas, you could be eking out some areas close to 9 to as much as 15, 16, 17 centimeters over the next couple weeks. All right, so we're looking at high temperatures. Look at this surge up here, 60s into the Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic. That's going to be with that big change of air mass. We're going to see this move through, and watch how cold it gets behind it though. Look at this, 40s into parts of New York, Pennsylvania, northeast Ohio for your Thursday, 50s pushing further southward into Friday the 7th here. Look at this. Look at these 30s up here. You know these are going to try to make a run towards the southeast here. We're stuck in the 40s and 50s here, the Midwest parts of the Ohio Valley into the northeast. Watch this. This is where things really start to come together for winter. Look at these 30s and even some 20s here up into northern parts of North and South Dakota. Now, the air mass does modify a bit, but look at this. We have 40s into North Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi here, 30s into parts of the Appalachians here. And look at this. Even along the coast, we're holding on to some 40s and near 50-degree readings here in the parts of the big cities of the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. November 10th here, look at this. We're stuck in the 40s and even a 38 there in Jamestown, New York. And for my hometown viewers, Binghamton, Grand Zipper, Susquehanna, River Valley, New York, and Pennsylvania, look at this. Yeah, so as we get through Wednesday night, Thursday, we could have some very high winds here. Wind gusts 40 to as much as 60 miles an hour. Showers will be moving in, especially as we get later Wednesday night in particular, maybe a tenth to a quarter of an inch. And then we clear it out by Thursday, but remaining extremely windy into Friday. We have a few showers maybe later in the day again. Friday night, showers move in. Saturday, maybe a few morning showers, but most of the highs will be up towards the 50s, with the exception for Thursday, the coldest day up down only near the mid to upper 40s, and it'll feel a lot colder. Plenty more weather to come. Here is a look at my affiliate. Check out these awesome, amazing maps. I am proud to announce that I am now an affiliate with Trilogy Maps. TrilogyMaps.com, bringing you the most digital, customizable maps found nowhere else on the internet. These maps are simply stunning. It's an advanced layering system that makes these maps great for making forecast maps with ease, or any other maps that you would like to display important information on. The resolution on these maps is simply amazing. From the detail of everything here in the States, and you can also create stunning, digital, professional layered maps from also across the entire world. And don't forget, in checkout, the discount code option, use my code, MeteoMark, hit apply, and you will get 20% off your order. So if you want the most professional, customizable, and affordable weather maps found nowhere else on the internet, look no further than TrilogyMaps.com. Link in the description down below along with your discount code. As always, thank you for joining me for this edition of MeteoMark's Weather. Also, don't forget to join me on Facebook at MeteoMark, also Weather Northeastern, also Twitter at Weather Eastern. Don't forget, it's MeteoMark.com. And don't forget, if you want to send me a coffee, there is a link, Super Thanks. You can smash that Super Thanks button, or my PayPal link in the description down below. You can buy me a cup of coffee. Thanks, everyone. Share that video. Subscribe if you haven't. Smash that like button.